For a while now, I've been hands-on with the new Desperado-style game, Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew. Sometimes the ability to go hands-on with a game this early can be a bit of a downer, seeing as the game is in alpha or beta state. Other times it's like playing Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, where you get something that is so damned fun, you can't wait to get real hands-on for the review. But what is the game? It's Desperados if you replace the cowboy antics of Desperados with the litany of undead pirates in a quest to lead your 8 crew members against the evil Inquisition that haunts the Lost Caribbean. In Jagged Alliance, if the mercs were replaced by scurvy-faced undead pirates, performing Mission Impossible heists in pirate ships instead of whatever car the movies have a PR agreement with, that would be this game. With my hours of playtime, I can say Shadow Gambit The Cursed Crew is a blast. It's got a unique take and just tongue-in-cheek enough to feel special. But will it be for you? Well, that's why the video is going to start right now, and we're going to talk about it. If you like this, go find a YouTuber that you watch but you haven't subscribed to. Hit subscribe button for them today. Spread a little bit of the love. Let's talk about some games. The game rolls out with you trying to take on and steal the Red Marley, a living ship with a spirit contained inside of her, giving a fresh take on an NPC as it guides you in later quests to remove her current unasked-for crew and replace them with your ragtag team of scallywags. Each character, of course, has their own specific weapons or special abilities, a bedazzled ship anchor, a sword that the main character keeps sheathed in her own dirty heart, and a cannon that, you guessed it, can shoot other characters across the map. And taking enemies down and using those weapons against them is the name of the game. I want to talk a little bit about the basic gameplay style that you have right here. Each mission has you setting up a crew, then diving into the navigator spot to pick starting points, which are particular islands that you unlock. Each island has many missions that you can take on, and each mission has a setting up of the crew that you do when you decide who you want to take with you. And of course, each crew member has their own advantages and skills. The cursed are pirates who've died. They're brought back to life by pearls filled with the energy of the undead, and then you shoot that into their chest to revive them, like, you would probably do. The power gives them the memory of their past, but also those special abilities that you take out against the enemy. Crew like a ship's cook that can teleport or make potions, or a soul-stealing ninja-style character who apparently spent just a little too much time in the bush and can create temporary hiding plants that you can go to, or confuse enemies with spores to make them walk away in confusion. While the battle is in real time, you do have the ability to slow it down, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, something you notice right away in this game is that every attack lists out a noise distance setting that informs you how far away enemies can hear you. But there's also a very unique thing here, and it's the dying duration, which is how long death of an enemy takes, and the animation is going to play. We all remember the times in games like this when killing an enemy has resulted in you watching the animation play while enemies come around a corner. And this tracking is a welcome bit of information when you're trying to pull off stealth kills. Each time you choose an action and highlight an enemy, it also gives you this nice indicator of some alert distance. Quickly, you get the ability to pause time and make moves in exact timing with other people on your team as well. And this is vital because some enemies have spiritual power connecting them via a guardianship, meaning to kill one, you have to kill the other at the same time, even if they're across the map. The game's art style is a well-worn, warbling style that feels like Guybrush Threepwood and Jack Sparrow built it, with slightly cartoonish but not so outlandish locations built of decaying wood or ornate structures where the enemies perform magical spells to clean the land and ruin the day of you and your multi-man party. But despite that cartoonish look, the world itself is very clear. Delineated locations for hiding and climbing or pulling enemies away from their patrols are everywhere, but at the same time, not always exactly where you expect them. A very keen and masterful way of making some of these levels, requiring sometimes for you to use 1, 2, or 3 skills across characters to pull an enemy away from a group to be killed. Performance so far is rock solid with this game, and I expect it to be so. All the settings on Ultra at 4K was well above 60 FPS on the 3080. It's got this great look to it, and one hell of an attractive art style if you're into this, and the little bits of comedy with the undead nail that. Now, so far, the voice acting is excellent, with every NPC fully voiced by what sounds like a group of people who just kept saying, "more evil," like good voice actors, building off one another and building up their bad guy performances.
My custode is a ready ship. A world of agony awaits you. Now tell me, what is the answer to Mordecai's riddle?
Ignatia. Even in death, the captain outwits you.
Most missions are set on islands, with you moving around, finding characters to talk to, or memories encased inside of shards that the undead can read and hear. That's you, telling you more of the story. This part is excellent, and it replaces usually finding a piece of paper with some odd scrolled note on it, and instead of a brief reading session, you actually have a flashback where you get to sort of watch what's happened, like a spiritual Alexa recording the last 16 seconds. And Shadow Gambit's use of character extends into the storytelling with one-liners from team members about other actions people are taking, or little snide comments on the plans that worked well, or maybe didn't work at all. Each character can be hit a total of 3 times before they fall to the watery depths of Davy Jones' locker. However, if you have a moment, you can take that time and resurrect them if you get close enough. Difficulty adjustments can be made to a number of the options, putting more enemies into locations and otherwise. And for every mission, you get to see the difficulty and what the major goals are when you get there. But be aware, the goals, of course, will be changing as you continue to play. And a lot of that change is due to the map variety. It is stunning, huge, multi-screen complexes with tons of ways for you to get in that are already there, and then multiplied by the characters that you brought into missions and the different posses you put together, as well as islands that are more stealth-based and you moving from bush to bush to take out the enemies. There's also some later game adjustments that I'm going to keep out of this preview for story and spoiler reasons. Lastly, because not everything was perfect here, the multi-character movement where you can pause and you can execute different moments at the exact same time can be a little bit confusing because some of the characters take longer, as I stated before, in the animations for particular attacks. You do have to take that into account because many were the time where I paused a moment, decided I was going to do 2 moves or 3 moves, executed them, and just because of the way that the characters moved or what they had to do to get close to an enemy, I ended up being seen. You do have to take that into account. I also noticed that the music is so far excellent, and it's what you would expect, though, with almost childlike kind of island swagger that channels a bit of reggae as well. Some bit more orchestral fare pops up. So far, it seems very fitting. It doesn't get in the way, but it does have some heroic moments, in particular cutscenes or at times of major battle.
Let's get moving, eh? Is that?
The sound effects are also very good. Little touches like the sound of bushes and leaves rustling when you Johnny Appleseed some bush into the middle of enemies' paths. Their reactions at seeing the oddities also plays out into the humor with them actually taking notice of you adding that addition. But getting through the audio section, I want to talk about how this game tracks stuff. Each level ends with an overview and a tracking of the entire mission and every single action you took. If you're like me, it's going to look like chaos theory or a child trying to see how many lines they can scribble over as you test and retest enemies' patterns and adjustments as well as your own speed. Now, in previews, it's often difficult to get a real line of true gameplay, whether the developers give enough context for the vertical slice or they overpower characters in some way to lead the player. Cursed Crew does not do this. Instead, it walks you through the starting story and gives you a number of maps to play, some of them very, very large for this style of game, and all of them having a refreshing surprise here or there, like finding out that one of the characters hasn't told anyone they can't swim, which means not only using another character, but possibly changing the tactics on the map. The level design also takes all of this into account. For example, there's a massive number of shortcuts or sideways into spots, or cliffs to skirt around enemies, or spots to swim around a guard to possibly get to them. As a mostly real-time game, it's about watching the enemy patterns, finding out how to take advantage of them, and then using the skills of the characters that you brought in, and you can also just choose to randomize the characters to switch things up. It's moments like you tiptoeing through an area to take out an enemy's mind and pass another group of enemies using his body as a disguise, then tripping a huge package of crates onto a deadly set of enemies so you don't have to take them out. Enemy variety is a mix of low-level guards meandering through their maps, thinking of dreary Mondays and tonight's mead-drinking contests, where others are ultra-powerful and immune to some attack types, and requiring a huge amount of exploration, experimentation, and extending of your basic skills. Skills that, when you continue to play, you can also upgrade. That's where Shadow Gambit excelled for me, though. That feeling of knowing that I had to do and change things as it went around. The easy turning of a effortless gamble into something that required far more thought. And watching around, trying to make sure I didn't warn one of the watchmen. Hiding bodies, throwing them off cliffs, tossing them into locked doors, and planting bushes where their bodies are turns what could be a game with a very patterned-like style to something with a great deal of free-form access to it. Right now, Shadow Gambit has a release date of sometime in 2023. My time spent with Shadow Gambit, though, was one part Ocean's 14 heist hijinks mixed with changing plans and excellent use of different strategies, with a tutorial section as well as testing locations on board the magical ship to come to grips with each new character that you unlock. Cursed Crew does one thing that many games of this kind don't, or just don't deliver that well. It doesn't just throw you in. It lets you dive in at your speed, do the tutorials, do the challenge maps, or go directly into the missions and maybe learn without any preparation at all. Longevity is going to be the key here, and I hope they can keep the game as strong as they did throughout the chapters that I played. But so far, this is what looks to be one of the excellent examples of this kind of genre for me. I cannot wait to continue to play this for review. Speaking of longevity, I've been doing this for almost 8 years. That's a long time. That's it. I just was reminded of that today by a patron. Check out the podcast. Peace out.